Okay, moving along, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Bob Scott, who asked me to keep it short, but that's tough to do with such a distinguished gentleman and such a great Rotarian. Bob Scott was born and raised in Edinburgh, but as you'll notice, he's picked up the English language quite well. He's a graduate in medicine of Edinburgh University, retired as a general practitioner and former chief of staff at Coburg General Hospital in Coburg, Ontario. Prior to retirement, he also served as medical director of a home for the aged and as a coroner for the province of Ontario. He is a recipient of many awards, including the Caring Canadian Award from the Governor General, the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal, the Sateri Khidmat from Pakistan. How was that, Bob? The Order of Chad, the Outstanding Leadership Award from the United Nations Foundation, the Glenn Sawyer Award from the Ontario Medical Association, and the 2006 YMCA Peace Medal. So a well-decorated man. Bob has been a Rotarian for 43 years and has served Rotary International as Vice President, Director, International Assembly Group Discussion Leader, and District Governor. He served the Rotary Foundation as a trustee and as chair in 2007-8, and is a member and a chair of the International Polio Plus Committee. He also served as co-director of the 2002-5 Polio Eradication Fundraising Campaign. He's a recipient of Rotary International Service Above Self Award. He's also received the International Service Award for a Polio-Free World, the 4 Avenues of Service Citation, the Rotary Foundation Citus for Meritorious Service, and Distinguished Service Award. That's about as short as I could make it, Bob. Bob's wife, Anne, is an honorary Rotarian, and both are members of the Arch Clump Society. Bob, the podium is yours.
Thank you for that short introduction. I'm glad Anne's with me. She now knows what I've been doing all these years. It's good to be here, and thank you for the invitation. I'll lift it up. Yes, I'm taller. Is that better? Okay, I'll try and speak to it. Just before I start, I thought I might just mention the fact of Jim Flaherty's passing, a great Canadian. He was also a Rotarian. He was a member of the Rotary Club of Whitby, and when he was in the House in Ontario, in Toronto, he was a very active Rotarian because he could make the meetings. When he went to Ottawa, he became less active, but still attended when he could. Wolf Wilkinson, past President Wolf, and I went and saw him in his office one Saturday morning. And of course, we were asking for money. What else? We were asking for money for polio. He didn't promise anything at that stage. He just said he'd promised to see what he could do. And he did. And he did well. And his influence to other members of his cabinet regarding the polio program has really paid off. And Canada is now at the level of over 400 million US. And there's no doubt Jim Flaherty had great influence on that. The other time we met him, Wolf and I, they have a morning club that meets at 7 a.m., for God's sake. Anyway, we were at a different, we came in from Trenton and Coburg, which wasn't a long drive, but, 30, 40 miles. And we did a polio program. And at the end, we gave Jim his Paul Harris. And he was absolutely surprised, extremely grateful. And so we will miss both a great statesman for Canada and a very true Rotarian. Many of us up here use a lot of notes, as you notice, because we've got gray hair and can't remember anything. And your governor has no hair at all, so he can't remember anything at all. But my friend John was notorious, and they were moving home to a new home. And he got up in the morning and his wife said, John, we move house today. Oh, he said, I'd completely forgotten. Well, for goodness sake, come back to the new place when you finished work. And I said, well, how can I forget? The mortgage will keep me working for the next 40 years. But the inevitable happened, and he drove up the old driveway. And, oh, yeah, we moved today. Now, where did we move to? Was it 47 East Street or 56 West Street? Anyway, there's a wee boy out there on his bicycle doing wheelies, as the wee boys do. And he said, Sonny, Sonny, come here, come here. And he said to him, do you happen to know the people that used to live here? And have you any idea where they moved to? And the little lad looked up and said, come on, Dad, Mum said you'd forget. I'm sure you've heard it before. I only know 2 jokes, and that's one of them. You see on the screen now a beautiful photograph that I managed to take of a little girl blowing a whistle, having just had her polio drops. We were in time. We prevented that little girl ever having polio. And it was a wonderful day that. I can remember it well. It was extremely hot, and it's about 20 years ago. So that little girl now is presumably grown up and a mother of her own, and hopefully will not have any polio-stricken children. And she won't, because that's in India. In India, as of the 27th of March at 2:31 Delhi time, is now certified polio-free, along with 10 other countries. So quite suddenly at that particular time, New Delhi time, no, I'm good. Okay. Oh, I don't know yet, I haven't used it. I love people that are helpful. All of a sudden at that time, 80% of the world is now certified polio-free. And that's extraordinary for parents, because they can now have children and know they will never, ever get polio. And that is a huge step forward. It was a very interesting ceremony, the certification signing of all these countries, including North Korea. And we talked to our North Koreans, and they didn't have horns coming out of their head. At the back and round the corner, we found these 2 little boys. We were too late. The world was too late. And this is the tragedy of this whole program, is that the world has been too late by many, many years. These children got polio 40 years after the vaccine was available. It is one of the disgusting things of world public health. And it's still happening. That's another boy. We were too late. This is in Nigeria. And I put up that picture as a wonderful artistic picture. But to remind us that once you have polio, you are never cured. You are a cripple for the rest of your life and have to be carried around by your father or mother or brother. So what causes this horrible disease? It's a poliovirus, which is in 3 varieties, as many of you know. Type 2 has disappeared in 1997. We eradicated it. We know how to do it. Type 3. We all have our fingers crossed that we have eradicated it. I believe we have. It hasn't been seen now since November 2012 in Nigeria. And so we are left, as we always thought we would be, with type 1. Type 1 will paralyze 1 in 200 children, as opposed to type 3, which is 1 in 1,000 children. And so we have the worst one left, the one that paralyzes these young children who kills these young children. It's essential we be on time. And we have the vaccine developed by these two men who unfortunately fought all their lives and didn't speak to each other. Dr. Salk, who had developed the inactivated polio vaccine. That's the one that's been killed and is given by injection. And we have Dr. Sabin on the right, and he, as you see, is in this close situation with his vial of live attenuated virus. And so it's a live virus we're giving to the children. And because of that, we are going to have, at the end of the day, to come back to IPV. I wish these two men were alive now to see how their vaccines are working together in synergy. Their children, interestingly enough, do talk to each other, and I've been at meetings with them both present. And who are we? You know who we are. We're Rotary, we're CDC, we're UNICEF, we're WHO, and in the last 7 to 8 years, we've been joined with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But the real folks are the governments of the world. In May of 1988 at the World Health Assembly, the world decided to eradicate polio. Not WHO, not UNICEF, not Rotary. They made the decision. And it's their responsibility to ensure that the polio is eradicated. And people are apt to forget that. They think Rotary is doing it, and we are, and we're helping. And the program was set up this way, and how I wish we had stuck with our original plan, and I'll explain. We were supposed to continue with routine immunization. We didn't. And even in this country, we were talking at lunchtime. We're forgetting about it. And so you have measles epidemic coming along in the next week or two here. We were to have national immunization days. And we have, and we continue to have them. They're extremely successful. And we were to have up on that right-hand corner surveillance and laboratory checking, and we still do. These people in CDC can almost tell the house the virus comes from. They certainly can tell the street. It is enormously successful. And then in case we missed anything, we were supposed to have mop-ups. And that was the whole story. Unfortunately, we were so successful at the beginning, with the numbers just dropping off, we forgot to impress on third world countries that they must develop routine immunization. And now the final plan that's coming around to finally eradicate emphasizes routine immunization. And that's the only way we'll eventually, at last, eradicate polio. The percentage of children in India now receiving routine vaccination has gone from 20% to 67%. That's why they got rid of polio. And that's what we're going to have to do in the remaining countries. So just to remind you, 1,000 cases a day in 125 countries at least. That's sort of counting backwards after we got going. All these countries, red. That's the best they can do for you today. We are so tantalizingly close. Each little dot, and this is the last 6 months, and this is from yesterday. I got this, I get it weekly. This is from yesterday. And you can see that there are very, very few cases of polio in the world in the last 6 months. You can't see too well on that slide, but the main countries left are Nigeria, Pakistan, Afghanistan. 3 countries. These other ones that have hashed yellow are countries where they have imported it from the ones that still have it. Even more striking, these are the districts in the world. These are the only districts in the world where polio is now present. Nowhere else. Only these districts. Fewer districts, I bet, than are in Calgary, or certainly fewer than are in Toronto. Very few. It's so tantalizingly close. Please don't give up. Don't be late for these children. Every one of them will be paralyzed for life. And what happened? Last year, from Nigeria into Somalia, huge outbreak up into Kenya, and from the north, from Pakistan, first into Afghanistan, then into Egypt. Fortunately, no cases, but we know it's there, it's in the environment, in the samples. And then into the West Bank, and then into Syria, as you all know. It's obvious. We have to get rid of polio in Afghanistan and Pakistan and Nigeria. And then we will be safe. We will have done it. So the bad in summary. 2013, the total number of cases went up from the year before because of the outbreaks being carried from these other countries. 2 endemic zones, FATA, Federal Area of Tribal Areas, Federal Agency of Tribal Areas in northern Pakistan, and KP, and don't ask me to pronounce it, Pakistan and the northeast of Nigeria, caused 75% of all the cases. Insecurity, which I'll come back to, was terrible. Was terrible. Vaccinators were being killed. The good, as I said, no wildfires, type 3. Endemic transmission, except in Pakistan, is down. And we've learned a lot of lessons about responding to the outbreaks. And the Bashar plan, I shall talk just immediately about. So where are we today? That's of yesterday. Is that not exciting? This year, 55 cases total. And you notice where they are, 43 in Pakistan. And you can add to that the ones in Afghanistan, because except for one case, they are all from Pakistan. Cameroon's, you see, spread from Nigeria. Guinea, spread from Cameroon's, from Syria, from Pakistan. Iraq, Pakistan. Nigeria itself. But isn't that good news? The last case we had of polio in Nigeria was the 1st of February. That's the longest 10 weeks of my life so far, and it will continue to be. We are very bullish that we have eradicated polio in Nigeria. And have I ever got figured? No, don't clap. It's not a sure thing. So don't clap ahead of time. If I come back next year and it's still the same, then you can clap. Then you notice below, I told you type 2 was gone a long time ago. And yet there are 5 cases mentioned. The vaccine we have been using, contained type 2 virus. In some children, for reasons that are somewhat obscure, occasionally the virus will undergo change. Will undergo change to the extent that instead of preventing polio, that child becomes polio. That child then passes that virus in her stool, playing in the dirty water, some other child picks it up and gets polio. And so we have it from the vaccine itself, the reason we're having to go back to the IPV. And we've had only 1 case in Nigeria. And unfortunately, to the child, to the mother, there is no difference. That child is paralyzed for life. These are the numbers. There's a whole other side to polio eradication that I'd like to talk about briefly now. And it's the effect on people. And I'm going to talk mostly about Pakistan because I visited there very frequently. It's not a holiday resort, by the way, folks. I wouldn't go there unless you really have to. This man was a senior vaccinator in an area in Karachi, a very poor slum area, as you can see. He was loved by the kids. He's a married man, 2 kids of his own, and he's doing a checkup, as we always do, to make sure the children have been vaccinated. And he turned the corner of that little lane, and the next time we saw him was like this, in a body bag. That day, 11 people were shot dead. He was the only man. The rest were young women, 19 to 23. Our chairman in Karachi went to one of the families that were grieving and was struck by the fact that a young girl aged about 16, sister of the deceased, came to him and said, "Mr. Memon, can I now go and vaccinate the children that my sister was unable to do?" He was emotionally struck by that remark. We couldn't agree because she was only 16. But that is the dedication of the vaccinators in all the world, but particularly in Pakistan, where they know they can be shot. We have lost 54 vaccinators in the last year and a half. We have lost more since the 1st of January this year than in the 2 previous years. It is a dangerous job. There is a war, not between themselves, but there was a war against polio vaccination. And in a cartoon, political cartoon, in the newspaper after the killings, we saw this cartoon. Our precious drops, blood red, the cause of death. Our program for peace, shedding blood. However, it wasn't all bad because some of the other mothers were so incensed because the vaccination had stopped, they demanded that their children be vaccinated. And this was wonderful news because the Independent Monitoring Board, who for years had been pushing us to make sure we weren't just going saying you had to have the drops. Instead, we were hoping that they would ask us to come and give the drops. Subtle difference. That group were asking us to come and give the drops, despite the killings. You can't see this very well, but I still like to show it. This is in Nigeria, in fact, and that's a Rotarian thanking a policeman for guarding the vaccinators. The reason I like to show it, but you can't make it out, right on that man's rifle is our End Polio Now logo. That makes me think a bit. Are we in a war or what? We're supposed to be having peace, not guys with guns helping us. Very quickly, this is India. The Muslim population, as you know, were being rather anti-polio. And so we decided to try and get them on side. And I went to Lucknow, and we had a meeting, and only 8 people showed up. It was so disappointing. I flew all the way back to Canada. I said, we're not going to give this up. We had a meeting in Delhi. And I make no bones about it. We bribed the people to come. We gave them a train ticket to come to Delhi. And that was more than they could resist. And they came. Various numbers I've been told, but there was about 126, 130 Muslim clerics in the room when I walked in, all speaking a different language, all wanting to preach a sermon. We sat down, and I was introduced. At that time, sorry to say this, the Americans and the Indian government weren't talking to each other. And certainly the Muslims were not talking to the Americans. And so I was introduced as a Scottish Canadian. I gave my piece, and I don't have a flasher here, but on the right-hand side, you see the older man with the sunglasses. I thought he was going to kill me. He was incensed. He was vitriolic. He was screaming. The spit was coming out of his mouth as he tried to climb across Opie Vesh, God bless him, died recently, to get at me. Fortunately, the group behind, they weren't all there at the time, but several behind pulled them off. And the man right on the left, past trustee, knew their language. We formed the Ulema Committee, and it was key to getting rid of polio in northern India. And in fact, they were ahead of other parts of India by the time we finished. I met them again recently, that whole committee, and instead of shooting me, they were actually hugging me. It was a great moment. This is Côte d'Ivoire. See that horrible man there? He was preventing the children being vaccinated. A Rotarian, 5 feet 2 inches or less, 4 feet 8 inches, I think. She's not very tall. She's now an incoming governor. And she arranged for the UNICEF people to come and speak. The result was the children of Côte d'Ivoire were vaccinated. And the result is there has only been one short skirmish in 8 years in that country since that. Polio produces peace, not war. This is Pakistan again. This is me vaccinating a child in the typical vaccinator mode, with my mouth open, as I try and drop the drops into the other child. And I sent that picture home to Anne, and she emailed me back and said, "What a lovely picture." And I said, "Did you see the man with the gun? Did you see the man with the gun?" That's how we're vaccinating people, children, in northern Pakistan. It's a war. It's dreadful. What does the child think? What's her, in this case, reaction? I went from there to a school they had at the back, and I promised never to show the fact that there were girls also in that class. But there were. But there were boys and a very nice teacher who was teaching them. And I asked what were they learning that day. Would you believe they were studying Wordsworth? I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er hill and dale, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, fluttering, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. And oft, when on my couch I lie, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. How in the world, in that place where 8 people had been killed that morning, not vaccinators, but 8 people had been killed, could they know the bliss of solitude, even if they knew what a daffodil was? It is extremely difficult, and that's why we still have cases there. So I came back from the school, and she decided, it had been, as she was being pushed forward to give me a bunch of flowers. And it was kind of funny. It was a bit of a push-pull situation. I wanted them, but she wanted to keep them. And I wanted them, and she wanted, we went back and forth like this. Of course, in the end, I let her win, and she was delighted. She went running away down the corridor, pleased as punch with her bunch of flowers. I had nowhere to keep them anyway. The man who ran the school and had run, I had first met him 12 years ago, now 14 years ago. He was the moving force behind this whole area in this terribly dangerous part of Karachi. He was killed May 10th. All he was trying to do was help children not get polio and have children educated. Of course, we do other things which are kind of fun. And you see here a couple of pictures of Wilf Hoganson and myself. Wilf talking to Goodluck Jonathan in Nigeria, trying to persuade him to give us some money. He was nearly successful. We're still waiting. And it's myself with the president of Pakistan. And then you can't really see it. Oh, that picture, she hoped I didn't show it, because if you notice, I'm showing a bit of leg there. I don't have my socks pulled up. And I was asking for money. And here's a paradox. This is a man from the Taliban giving vaccine. It's, however, Afghanistan. And the situation is totally different. the Afghanistan Taliban group are totally different. So different, we have them on the committees to help us eradicate polio. We don't know what's wrong with the group in northern Pakistan that are so dreadfully different. And we can't get the two lots to talk together. But it's the reason why we only have had one indigenous case in Afghanistan this year. That is a polio virus that lived and was born in Afghanistan, didn't come from anywhere else. If that is true, I believe Afghanistan and Nigeria will be off the list this year. Don't clap. I'm hoping. It should happen. And we will not be too late for all these red dots. 10 million polio cases averted so far. 1.5 million deaths averted. It's a killer. Remember, it just doesn't paralyze. It kills. And at the end, of course, I have to talk about money. The money situation is such, as you probably know, that the end game is to cost $5.5 billion. That number was reached by two independent groups quite separately. They got within 100 million of each other, so we rounded it out at 5.5. To date, we have pledged just under $5 billion, including money, of course, coming from Rotary. Now that is a considerable improvement, but that's just pledged money. I'm so happy that I was in Ottawa this week, because Canada pledged $250 million at that conference. And they were first out of the chute, and I was so pleased and happy to be a Canadian sitting in the audience when Minister Fantino got up and said, no strings, $250 million. There were a lot of strings in some of the other pledges. In Ottawa this week, already, half of that money has been forwarded with tremendous effort, particularly in Pakistan and particularly in Nigeria. That money is yours, your taxpayers. You've used it. Thank you so much. But yeah, it's worth applause. It doesn't matter if you're a Tory or a Liberal or a whatever. It's your money, and it's so, so important. Of course, you know this is our fourth agreement with the Gates Foundation. And as you see up there, $1 becomes $3, or 25 plus 50 becomes 75. And you see what the money is being used for on that particular chart. The aprons, the ice boxes, the markers. So, so useful. But what can I say about this district? These districts, the districts of Alberta. $350,000 from the government of Alberta. This is a first. You should be so proud. No other provincial government has given us 1 penny up to now. Plus $350 from you Rotarians. Your generosity, as always, is terrific. In the districts of 5360 and 536. And that equals $2.1 million. It will allow us to be on time, as we were for the little girl on the right, and not be too late, as we were for the little boys on the left, as you engage Rotary and change lives. And I always finish with the most favorite picture I ever received in this game. There he is. He's wearing a Macintosh and not much else. Thank you for all you do, and we will eradicate polio. Thank you so much.
Bob, thank you for a very inspirational talk. very thought-provoking. We've made tremendous progress, tremendous achievements, but as you've pointed out, some huge challenges still ahead of us. I think we're all inspired to contribute and do what we can. What we can do is pretty humdrum compared to what you've been doing. You make my whole life seem humdrum, describing what you've what you've been doing. But we'd like to present you with a small token of our appreciation for coming here and making this presentation.
I thought it was a check for $350,000.
That is yet to come. So this isn't a check, but just a small token of our appreciation.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much.
if you could stay up on the stage, we do have a special presentation. And I would like to call up Greg Weddick, member of the Legislative Assembly, although for Lethbridge West, and recently, congratulations, Minister of Municipal Affairs as of last week.
Congratulations. Thank you. Great work.
So I guess Greg is honorable again. He was close. I'd describe him as slightly less than honorable. I'd also like to call up Betty Skrepnik, District Governor for 5370, and our District Governor, Pat Kaloran. Linda's just going to run into the men's room now and get Pat out here.
Let's move out a bit so we can get decent photographs. I brought a big check too. Good. But I also brought the check. Oh, that's good. That's even better.
He's on air. So perhaps what I'll do is have a public service announcement. Dinner this evening is home hospitality. And if you've paid your registration fees, that's included in your registration fees. The buses leave from the west parking lot, which is to the rear of the hotel. They'll take you to your home. There was a list there that told you which bus to get on. If you didn't see it, go check it down in the lobby. And after the meal, the buses will return you to the hotel where you can partake in the powwow this evening, which is in this room at 8 o'clock. With that, thanks for your patience, and if I could turn the mic over to Greg.
Well, thank you, Robin. It's great to be here today, and I remember to wear my Rotary pin so I don't get fined today. But it is, I've been so pleased and privileged to be a Rotarian, and I think one of the biggest draws to me over 20 years ago when I joined was some of the international work that we heard about when we first started, and that goal to eradicate polio was such an incredible goal. And at that time, 20 years ago, we were on the way, but we were not nearly as close as we are today. So thank you for the work you've done personally, to all of the people that you've worked with. We just wouldn't be here without the folks on the ground. I mean, we're proud and pleased to do what we do, but we just couldn't do it without you guys. So thanks so much. Thank you. So I'm very pleased to be here today. I have two checks for $175,000 each for each of the two districts. And seeing that getting matched to $2.1 million and helping move us towards the goal is just incredibly pleasing to see. I'm just so proud. I want to bring greetings from Premier Hancock, from our entire government, from the legislature of Alberta. We're so pleased to be the first province to, you know, Alberta's always number one. And we always like to be first. And once again, we're going to be first again, and first for an amazing cause. And thank you to all the Rotarians in this room. I know the volunteer hours you put in your communities, in your clubs, and all the great things that you do and that we can do together. So with that, I'm going to hold up this big check. Get her? Don't quit, I'm hugging her. Oh, I thought it felt a little chunkier.
He takes a picture and then takes his glasses off. I'm not sure about that.
Looks good, guys. Great. Great.
Now put that down, I'm gonna give you the real picture. So to District 5370, Betty,
Thank you, Greg.
congratulations.
Thank you very much.
175,000.
Wow.
Pat? Great, thank you. 5360, I'm just proud to work with both of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, let Bob say a few words and then Betty will have to.
Don't go away, Minister. Oh, he knows the word minister. See how he turned around. I just want to thank you personally for coming and presenting the checks to us. 350,000 isn't received every day. In fact, it's very rarely that amount is received, so I thank you so much. I thank the Alberta government. Of course, they may be the best in the West, but they're certainly the least in the East. No, seriously, what a wonderful, wonderful way to start your district conference, and I really can't say more. You know, it will come, as you saw, to 2.1 million US dollars. Approximately, it's $1 per child saved. So today, you're saving 2.1 million lives. As I said earlier, 2.1 million lives will be there in time for. Thank you so much.
Greg,
Great.
let me talk to both of you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Minister Gregg, I think we should all know that Minister Gregg, as the MLA for this area, initially took this forward to the government to make it happen. Thank you. I'd like to share a few words. Pat has given me the privilege of sharing a few words on behalf of my district and, of course, your district. I'd like to extend my gratitude for sure on all of our behalf and tribute the province of Alberta for their wisdom in recognizing the value of the matching dollars from our members to a maximum of $350,000 for the both districts. Each district went to work to get these dollars, $175,000. And you know, we all know that both of our districts have provinces outside as well in our club. Pat, I think you do as well, and I have British Columbia and Saskatchewan. And so I had the district governor nominee say to me, will you accept BC dollars? I said, are you kidding? Alberta will accept BC dollars anytime. Our provincial government made the announcement through Minister Heather Klimchuk at my conference in October 2014, where District Governor Pat and Linda were our guests. Fellow Rotarians, let us put our hands together to thank the province of Alberta for being the first to step up to the plate and make this commitment. Dr. Bob Scott, thank you for continuously being our inspiration to keep going, to beat this preventable disease. How can we not stay focused and continue the fight with a role model such as yourself? Thank you. Let me just one more time, because I think this is so important, let me one more time review how this magic matching process worked for this particular fundraiser for polio eradication. Each district contributed $175,000. Now we have $350,000. Our provincial government committed to matching that with $350,000. We now have $700,000. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation said they would match fundraising to a tune of 2 to 1. That means 2 times $700,000 is $1,400,000. Now, in my basic math, I'm not an accountant. That's how we came up, the $1,400,000 and the $700,000 from the provincial government with our Rotarians to come up with $2.1 million. Totally amazing. Our Rotarians in District 5360 and 5370 and our partners with the provincial government and the Gates Foundation. What an amazing accomplishment. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, on behalf of District Governor Pat. It has been wonderful working in partnership with you. I mean, just a true partnership when we talk about partnerships, for sure. Engaging Rotary, changing lives. That's what we've done, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.